And so we're very fortunate to have an attorney with us who's going to talk to you about some of the consequences when you misuse the iPad. And so I am just going to go right ahead and turn it over to our attorney. Her name is Ms. Stephanie Tuttle. And Stephanie comes to us from the Barr, Bullhouse, Lafier, is that right? Law firm in Granville, Michigan. So Stephanie, welcome.
Good evening. I'm always happy to be in Zeeland because my husband actually teaches in Zeeland. He teaches 4th grade at Lincoln Elementary, so if any of you out there have had Mr. Tuttle, I usually admit that I'm related to him, so hopefully it's a good thing that I did. As Ms. Johnson said, I'm an attorney, and I practice at Bullhouse Bar here in Granville. And one of the areas that I practice in is criminal defense. Our firm does all sorts of other things. If you're interested, I have brochures out there. But the reason I started getting interested in this whole hot topic of sexting by minors is because I had a client come in to my office and he was charged with it. And it really affected the course of his life going forward. And on top of that, I have 2 teenagers. I have a daughter, Abby, who's 15, and our son, Ben, is 17. They go to Jenison, and our son will be a senior this year. And once I started investigating and doing some legal research on sexting to represent my client, I came home and I was talking to my own kids about it and realized that a lot of their friends are participating in this, and it's a big problem. And so what I did back in January was I decided to write some letters to area high school principals and to volunteer my time, essentially, to come out and educate students and parents, staff, about what a kid is really doing when they're taking these photos, sending these photos, and holding on to these photos. So that's really what I'm talking about this evening. And I'll leave some time at the end for questions too, if you have them. And actually, don't even feel bad about interrupting me. I've done this a lot of times, so I'm pretty laid back, and I'd love to hear from you, your questions as you think about them. But what is sexting? Sexting is the exchange of sexually explicit photographs and sexual banter through cell phones, computers, and other electronic means. Now, sexting, the words, are problematic, so please don't take anything that I'm saying tonight to diminish the impact of what words can do. But when we're talking about felonies, the issue is the images, it's the photographs, not the words. Words can still be prosecuted under a bullying or harassing statute, but I'm not going to be addressing that tonight. What I am talking about when I say sexting for this is images, photographs that students are exchanging. So sexting is legal if both parties are 18 years of age and older. Not sure what these 2 ladies are looking at here, but if it's a picture of someone over the age of 18, they're okay. I always need to say, when I say they're okay, they can't be charged legally. It's never a good idea, even if you are over the age of 18, to put that stuff out there, because as we'll learn a little bit later, you can never get it back. It's just not a good deal. So, usually when I give this talk, I'm standing in front of a group of students, and I always do a little poll, and so I'm going to sing one here. How many of you here have a cell phone? Just raise your hand for me. Yeah, okay. Now, put them down. How many of those people that just raised their hand, how many of those cell phones have internet capabilities? You can do Facebook, yeah. I would say that that's about par for the course. About 75% of the students that I talk to have internet capability on their cell phone. Now here in Zealand, you also have the added bonus, really, of having an iPad at your disposal. So that's one other means of connecting to the internet, and it's a computer device. I just did a little bit of updating to my research. Ottawa County recently released a study, the Youth Assessment Survey for 2011, and they found that 12% of teens surveyed had sent a nude photo within the last 12 months. And 22% of teens surveyed had sent a sexually explicit text within the last 12 months. You compare that to the national stats, and 20% of teens across the country admit to sending nude photographs via text, and 30%, which is 1 in 3 students nationally, age 17, have received a nude or nearly nude image on their cell phone. So, you know, students, look to your left, look to your right. One of you has sent or received, statistically, a nude photograph. So, sexting is a felony in Michigan. And I have a video here that I'm going to pull up for you. Before I do that, what you need to know is that the story is of a young kid from Florida. And the reporter interviews him and is talking about his conviction down in Florida under Florida law. The same penalties apply in Michigan. All right, so that's what you need to know as you watch this.
Parents out there, there's a worrisome trend we need to tell you about. More than 20% of teenagers admit to sending naked photos of themselves to other teens. It's called sexting, and in Florida, it's a felony. Phillip Albert found this out the hard way after sending naked pictures of his girlfriend to his friends, and Phillip joins us live now. Phillip, as we understand it, about 1.5 years ago, you got into a fight with your girlfriend, and I guess to get back at her, you sent out a naked photo of her that she had sent to you to lots of people, including your buddies, her relatives, even some teachers. What were you thinking that day?
Well, actually, it wasn't my friends. What I did was, I was really upset. It was early in the morning. I mean, not that it's an excuse, but I had her email address, and I just went in, I hit select all. I wasn't targeting, you know, teachers or anyone specifically. It just happened that those people were in her email list.
I see. Okay, thank you. And as a result of this, of sending out this naked photo, you got in trouble, and you ultimately were convicted of a crime that you say went well beyond the act that you committed. What were you convicted of?
Technically, I was convicted of sending of child pornography.
You are now classified as a sex offender, and as a result, we understand you have been kicked out of college, you are on probation for 5 years, you had to register as a sex offender, you have to take a mandatory sex offender class for $1,500 a year, you're not allowed to use the internet, you're not allowed to live with your dad because he lives too close to a school. What has your life been like since this happened to you?
Well, just from what you mentioned there, you could probably imagine it's been bad, but knowing also that my neighbors come to my house and try to talk to me, make sure I'm not going to harm their children, that former friends of mine no longer wish to speak with me, family members are absolutely just, crushed because of this. Luckily, they've stood by me, but I know that I've hurt them at the same time, and it's not something that I ever wanted to do. It's something that I highly regret. I really do, and not just because I got in trouble, but because I know I hurt the girl, her family, and my friends and my family, too.
And do you think that the punishment fit the crime?
I don't. Not that I'm saying that I can justify this, not that I'm saying that I don't deserve a punishment, because I absolutely do. I just think that having to be a registered sex offender till at least the age of 43 and 5 years of probation and getting kicked out of college and being on a list for people that harm little kids and do sexual deviant acts towards very small children, I don't think that that is fair.
And yet, Phillip, you pleaded guilty to this. Why did you plead guilty to child pornography?
Actually, I pleaded nolo contendere, I think it is. I did not plead guilty to it.
Okay, and then they have a lawyer come on and talk about all the legal mumbo jumbo. But the point is that Michigan law is pretty much the same down the line as what you just heard that young man experienced in Florida for sexting. So what is Michigan law? Little disclaimer here, if I rattle off the letters MCL, that's the abbreviation for Michigan compiled laws. So if I say MCL with a bunch of numbers after it, MCL 750.145C, that is the Michigan statute that I'm talking about, just so you know for your reference. And the statutes that are implicated with minor sexting are MCL 750.145C and MCL 750.145D, as well as the sex offenders registry. So the title of MCL 750.1.45C is child sexually abusive activity or material. That's typically what you and I understand to be child pornography, all right? The statute goes on to define some terms that are going to be important for you to understand what's going on here. The definition of a child is a person who is less than 18 years of age. Now, it's really important that you understand one thing. We're talking about photos, don't forget that. The subject of the photo, the age of the subject of the photo is crucial on the date that the photo was taken. So, for example, let's say a 17-year-old girl, let's say she's 17 years old, 364 days. I mean, she's 1 day away from turning 18. She takes a photograph of herself that would qualify under the statute as child pornography. Even though she turns 18 the next day, it doesn't make the picture legal. The picture is still child pornography because at the time it was taken, the girl was under the age of 18. So that's very strictly applied across the board. There is no exception in the statute for a person taking a picture of him or herself. So, in other words, even if you're just taking you're in the bathroom and you're taking a photo and it qualifies under the statute, because it's of yourself, you've still created child pornography. And a lot of kids don't understand that. So, what does the picture have to look like? What does it have to include? Without getting into too much of the nitty-gritty, the photo of the person under the age of 18 must portray erotic nudity. Now, what that is, the nudity must include what's called a lascivious display, which means for the purpose of producing lustful thoughts. So we're not talking about the cute little pictures that you take of your kids in the bathtub when they're 3 or 4. You know, we all have those. We have to have those as parents to embarrass our kids later, right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about pictures of a minor that are taken for the sole purpose of producing lustful thoughts into someone else, all right? So what I'd like to say is, when I talk to students, is this means pretty much your bathing suit areas are off limits, okay? Just stay away from taking nude photographs of anything that your bathing suit should cover. Now, there's another statute that's implicated. So we've talked a little bit about the child pornography statute. There's another way that kids can get charged, and that is using a computer to commit a crime. That's MCL 750.145D. It prohibits the use of a computer to commit a crime. Now, remember all of you who raised your hand and said that you had internet capability on your cell phone. You're carrying around a computer. The students that are going to be getting iPads, they're carrying around a computer. If they use the iPod or iPad, they use the cell phone with the internet capability to take a picture that qualifies as child pornography, they not only open themselves up to a potential felony under the child porn statute, but also for using a computer to commit a crime. So what does this mean? The penalties for minors sexting in Michigan are almost identical to that of possession of cocaine. Now, I wouldn't ask you in the front row to hold on to a bag of cocaine for me. And I tell students that's essentially what you're doing when you're sending these photographs to your friends, to your boyfriend, to your girlfriend. You're sending a bag of cocaine. And it's a felony to do this. But there's 3 ways under the child porn statute that we're going to talk about that can get a kid in trouble, all right? The first one is taking the photos, which I already touched on briefly. So the photograph has to depict erotic nudity, and the person would have to use a computer in order to be charged with the second, using a computer to commit a crime. But just the act of taking the photo is called manufacturing or creation of child pornography. That comes with a very stiff penalty, a 20-year potential felony, a $100,000 fine, plus, again, another 10-year felony for using a computer to commit a crime, just for taking the picture, even if it's of yourself. Now, when I reach these penalties, these are the maximum penalties under the statute, and I can tell you that a first-time offender with no prior record under this statute would never get anywhere near this. But the potential is there for some serious consequences, certainly. The second way under the child porn statute that students can get charged is distributing the pictures. So the act of sending the photo out there, posting it online, putting it on Facebook, Twitter, texting it to a friend, that is called distribution of child pornography. And that carries a 7-year potential felony, $50,000 fine, plus, again, another 10-year felony for using a computer to commit a crime. And here's the one that usually is the thing that gets students into trouble. Having the photos. This is the third way you can get charged under the child pornography statute. If you have possession, actually it's knowing possession of child pornography, then you can be sentenced or charged with a felony. The maximum sentence is 4 years in prison, a $10,000 fine, plus another 10-year felony for using a computer to commit a crime. Now, let me talk with you about what it really means to possess a photograph, because this really surprises a lot of people. The legal definition of possession includes what's called constructive possession. That means it's within a person's dominion or control. If a prosecutor can show that a person had constructive possession of a photograph, they can still be charged with it. And let me tell you a story of what happened to my client. I had a guy come in and he was charged, or he told me, I just had some cops show up at my house and they had searched for it and they took my computer. And right away I'm thinking, uh-oh, this isn't good. And what my client was doing was he was exchanging nude photographs with a girl who was 17 and a half years old. And he deleted the photographs off his computer. It's not like he was holding on to them. He didn't pass them along to anyone. He never shared them with another person. In fact, he pretty much deleted them, quite soon after he got them. So I'm thinking, okay, well, we might have a shot here. His hard drive was sent to the Michigan State Police Forensic Computer Lab, and using some high-end forensic computer software, they were able to retrieve 7 photographs off of the unallocated space of my client's hard drive, photos that he had deleted, photos that he himself could never have opened up his computer and seen without the aid of this forensic software. But nevertheless, photographs that he had at one time viewed on his computer. Now, as a lawyer, I'm thinking, okay, there's got to be a good argument here that he didn't have possession because it's not like he could have opened them up and looked at them. And that's true, except this whole constructive possession kicked in, and the girl who he was trading photographs with, they were also doing Skyping, and when you Skype, it doesn't necessarily record the images, but it records the dialogue back and forth. And the prosecutor had obtained Skype logs from the alleged victim. And in those Skype logs, my client was asking the 17-and-a-half-year-old girl to send him those photos. And because he was the one requesting them, the prosecutor was going to be able to show constructive possession because he was making affirmative actions to get those photographs onto his hard drive, even though he then deleted them. So he was charged with 5 felonies, 3 misdemeanors, and we ended up taking a plea agreement, and he was charged with 1 felony, possession of child sexually abusive material, and then they did downgrade the using a computer to commit a crime to a misdemeanor. So it was 1 felony and 1 misdemeanor. My client was on the road to finishing up a teaching degree, and he instead is now registered on the Michigan Sex Offender Registry. He just got out of jail last month. The whole course of his life was dramatically altered because of his actions. So even though you think you've protected yourself by deleting the photograph, please understand that once you take it, it's really, really hard to get it back. You really can't erase it unless you have your computer professionally wiped. So what are the consequences of a felony? In Michigan, you lose the right to vote. You lose the right to bear arms, no more rifle hunting, deer hunting, that sort of thing. You're usually not able to obtain a professional license. Forget being a teacher, a doctor. I really need to take the lawyer thing out of there because, wouldn't you know, us lawyers, we just kind of let anybody in. So if you're a felon, you might be able to work it still. You're going to have difficulty finding employment, and anything that requires a background check, forget about it. You're not going to qualify. I tell kids that volunteer like at church for student ministries or in nursery, you're done with that, all right? It's over. And then there's the whole sex offender registry. That is the most serious consequence. I tell people you can do the jail time and be done with it and not look back, but the sex offender registry follows you for 15 years. A client has to register for 15 years as a sex offender. So what are the consequences of that? And actually I took these right out of my client's probation requirements. I'll just read them to you. You may not live in a house with a child under the age of 17. You may have no contact whatsoever with anyone under the age of 17. You may not own or possess a computer or any device capable of connecting to the internet. You can't even reside in a house where there is such a device. You cannot marry, date, or have any sort of romantic involvement with a person who has physical custody of any individual age 17 or under. They tell you who you can go out with. You may not possess or use any photographic equipment, may not live or work within 1,000 feet of a school, and you may not be within 500 feet of a park, municipal swimming pool, playground, childcare center, preschool, or arcade. And what I have to tell you is this is about 25% of their requirements on his probation form. It's just a small sampling of what he has to go through for the next 15 years. So some of you are out there saying, oh my goodness, what do I do if my child receives something like this, or I receive something like this, a photograph that would qualify as child pornography? First of all, students, you absolutely need to talk to a parent or a trusted adult, a teacher. You need to let somebody know what's going on. Don't think that it's not a big deal and you can keep this one to yourself. Because, as you just heard, there are really drastic consequences if you get caught with this stuff. The second thing you need to do after you talk to somebody about it is you need to promptly respond to the person who sent you that material and say, I did not ask for this photograph. Please do not ever send me anything like this again. And then you need to save a copy of that response text that you sent to the sender. And you save that forever and ever, amen. All right? And once you have that saved, then you delete the offensive photograph. Not only do you delete the offensive photograph, but you take further steps. You unfriend that person from Facebook. You block that person from sending you further texts on your cell phone. Don't follow them on Twitter. What you need to show is that you wanted nothing to do with that. That was nothing that you asked for or that you were participating in. And that will go very far in saving you from any possible legal consequences if you get caught. Never, ever, ever forward a photo that would qualify under the child pornography statute, even if it's questionable. When you do that, you are distributing something that could change not only your life, but the life of the person who's receiving it, all right? So never, ever forward photos. Don't take the photo. Stop taking the photos. If the picture was sent to you by someone who is bullying or harassing another person, you have to immediately report that to not only the school administration, but to the authorities as well, because that's taken very, very seriously. So the big question is, can I just delete the photos and forget it? No, you cannot do that because of what I just talked to you about, the constructive possession and the fact that you can never really fully delete something like that. Be smart about it. Computer forensic experts have the ability to get in there and see what it is that you have. You know, I have a lot of students who say, I'm okay, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, they would never, ever, ever share this photograph. It's just between the two of us. Nobody sees my cell phone but me and him, and we love each other. And I don't want to discount young love. I'm sure that the feelings are very strong. There's a story I like to tell of a 15-year-old girl from Jenison High School. I know this girl very well. She's a great kid. And she was dating a guy from Wyoming Park High School. And they were in love, and they were separated by distance, Wyoming, Jenison. And so they started trading sexually explicit photographs that would qualify under the statute. Well, unbeknownst to the girl from Jenison, her boyfriend had all of his texts forwarded to an email address. And I think a lot of kids do that. And he actually had kind of forgotten that he had set it up that way. The email address that he had his texts forwarded to was Wyoming Park High School email account. And the Wami Park Police Department has a resource officer that goes to the schools and monitors those email accounts. And you can imagine their surprise when they saw these pictures pop up. The long, sad story is that the student from Wami Park was charged with a felony. And the student from Denison was also charged with a felony, but she was 15, so she was adjudicated in the juvenile system. So something like this has less consequences moving forward. Once you hit the age of 16, though, they start looking at charging kids as adults under this. So the moral of that story is, even though they never intentionally forwarded those photographs and never wanted anyone to see, it happens. There was a story out in Colorado about 3 months ago where there was a problem with students sending nude photographs around this middle school, and they were doing it in a bullying and a harassing way. And the police actually came to the school with search warrants and seized cell phones from 7 students. Those kids didn't have a chance to wipe their cell phone SIM card, so you just never know. Be smart about what kind of material you have on your phone and your iPad. A lot of kids say, well, what about if I buy a refurbished computer? Or in the case of my kids who can't seem to keep their cell phones out of the washing machine, you know, you have to go onto the eBay and buy a new handset and get that on program, but you're buying a used phone. And so what we do is we spend an extra $10 and get a brand new SIM card and just remove the possibility that there's anything on there that we don't know about. So students, the moral of today's talk is do not take nude photos of yourself, period, especially if you're under the age of 18. Don't send nude photos of yourself or anyone else out into the electronic world. Don't ask anyone to send nude photos to you, because you could be charged, like my client was charged, with constructive possession. And most importantly, not everyone is engaged in this behavior, but you all probably know somebody who has. Please talk to your friends, show them the handout that you were given, and make sure that your friends they're not taking chances with the future that they could have, because this truly could alter the course of the rest of the kid's life. And that is all I have for you this evening.